We like to think that searching for truth is a noble act, that the more we read, study, and question, the closer we come to enlightenment. We picture ourselves as explorers, moving through confusion toward clarity. But what if the constant search isn't really about truth at all? What if it's about something more primitive, the fear of not knowing? We don't realize it, but most of our searching begins the moment our confidence cracks. We feel a quiet panic. What if I'm wrong? What if I've been following the wrong path? And to calm that discomfort, we start gathering information, convincing ourselves that we're learning when we're really just trying to feel safe again. That's the hidden psychology of faith and doubt, and that's when seeking truth becomes a trap. When someone says they're researching their religion, it sounds admirable, disciplined, intelligent, sincere. But psychology paints a more complex picture. Humans crave cognitive harmony. We need our beliefs, feelings, and experiences to make sense together. When they don't, we feel what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, that uneasy mental static when something doesn't fit. To quiet it, we go searching for confirmation, not truth. So when a believer dives deep into theology or philosophy, they often tell themselves, I just want to understand. But subconsciously, what they're really saying is, I need proof that I'm still right. Every article, every sermon, every verse breakdown becomes a small hit of reassurance. For a moment, the fear softens, then it returns, and the search begins again. It feels like growth, but it's really maintaining belief, maintaining calm. The irony is that the mind doing the research often doesn't want discovery, it wants relief. At the other end of the spectrum are those who simply believe. They don't argue. They don't study apologetics or trace the origins of scripture. They just trust. To an intellectual, that looks naive, but psychologically it's efficient. The person of blind faith doesn't wrestle with dissonance. They've accepted their story and built peace within it. That kind of certainty gives the mind closure. It says, you can stop thinking, you can rest. And for many, that's enough. Blind faith doesn't lead to more knowledge, but it can lead to more peace. It replaces the anxiety of what if with the comfort of I know. And peace, to the human brain, often feels closer to truth than truth itself. But then there are those who can't rest, not in belief, not in disbelief. They need to keep digging. They call it curiosity, but over time it becomes identity. They think, I'm not like the blind faithful. I'm a seeker. I ask questions. But the moment the ego attaches to being the one who questions, you're trapped again, this time inside the idea of being open-minded. Because now your worth depends on never arriving. You can't find peace, because peace would mean you stopped seeking. It's an ancient pattern. Greek skeptics like Pyrrho made entire philosophies around not knowing, yet proudly built schools to teach their uncertainty. Medieval theologians tried to prove God through logic, piling up arguments until faith sounded like math. Even today, people binge religious debates or spiritual podcasts, feeding the same loop, not to discover, but to defend their uncertainty with more elegant reasoning. We mistake endless seeking for humility. Sometimes it's just ego wearing the mask of honesty. Modern neuroscience explains why this loop feels impossible to escape. The brain processes uncertainty as pain. It lights up the same regions that respond to physical threat. That's why we refresh news feeds after tragedies, or cling to conspiracy theories. The brain doesn't need truth, it needs closure. Religion, politics, even science, they all sell comfort to that same psychological hunger. They say, you can stop worrying, Here's the story that explains everything. And for those who keep researching faith endlessly, the discomfort never fully goes away. Because closure isn't truth, it's relief. And relief fades, so the brain demands more. And the seeker becomes addicted, not to knowledge, but to the feeling of nearing an answer. That's not enlightenment, that's anxiety with better vocabulary. So how do you escape the trap? It's not by choosing blind faith, and it's not by abandoning belief altogether. It's by noticing when thinking turns into therapy, when study becomes a form of sedation. True maturity isn't certainty, it's calmness in uncertainty. It's being able to say, I don't know, and maybe I never will, and that's fine. You can have faith without turning off your mind, and you can question without losing your peace. Every major tradition has a version of this wisdom. Buddhism calls it the middle way, walking between craving and avoidance. Islam calls it tawakkul, trusting while releasing control. Christianity remembers Thomas, the disciple who doubted and still followed. Even philosophy, at its best, asks not for belief, but for honesty. The goal was never to erase doubt. It was to learn how to live with it gracefully. If you've ever told yourself, I'm close, one more book, one more video, one more argument, and it'll all make sense, notice that close never ends. It just loops. We feel like we're moving forward, but we're walking in circles. Because the finish line isn't truth, it's relief. It's the same illusion scientists chase when they believe one more equation will explain the universe, or philosophers when they try to define consciousness. The further we go, the further it moves. That doesn't mean we shouldn't ask. It means we should know when to stop chasing. Because the search for certainty can become a way to avoid silence, and silence is the one place we might actually face ourselves. Sometimes, what we call seeking truth is just fear refusing to sit still. Maybe peace doesn't come from finding the right answers, but from losing the need to prove we already have them. Maybe the point was never to arrive at truth, but to walk honestly through not knowing. Because the moment you stop demanding certainty, you stop feeding the trap, and you realize the search was never about truth at all. It was about escaping the fear of not having it. And once you make peace with that fear, you finally find what you were looking for all along.